Hey everyone. So we're going to look at a couple of techniques that will get you going on the final version of the text project. Um, the first step that you need to do is to find a high quality image of a musician. You're going to be adding text to one of their songs, or text of one of their songs using the type on a path tool, but you could also use like text if they have multiple albums, you could use that like each like part of them is a different album title, or you can like as long as you keep it relevant to that musician. That's what we're looking for here, for you to experiment with how to use the path tool or the type on a path tool while creating an image like this. You're also going to be looking for a couple of key goals that I have set out for you, and I'm going to talk about those in a minute. But once or we're just going to get set up in Photopea first off. So I have my Photopea just loaded to this blank screen first, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I am making an 8.5 by 11 or a computer paper letter sized document. So I'm going to hit new project, and this is a print based size. So I'm going to print, letter is right down here. And while I'm at it, I'm just going to change my name to type on a path letter and create. All right. Now I'm going to find a picture of an artist for this. I've just been listening to a lot of Willow Smith lately, so I have that Googled in a new tab, and I'm also going to always make sure that I'm using my tools to search large size or quality images. And when I'm looking for images now, I'm looking for ones that showcase the artist, but I could also use like they have like good lines to them. They're good quality. There's not really anything like crazy in the background. It's just a very clear picture. So I'm seeing a couple of these with like the white background, and I'm thinking that I'm going to end up using one of these ones here. So I'm looking for the pixels in the bottom left. And I see that this one's only 720, but the other one that I was thinking about is 1700. So this would just be a higher quality picture. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy and paste that into my Photopea. You could also save it and open and place it into your Photopea. Now, once I have it put into Photopea, I'm going to go ahead and use my Shift key to not distort it, because otherwise I would be changing the proportions of the face. And I'm going to make sure that it's like most of my canvas. It's okay if it's not all of it, because we will be not using the whole or the picture in the end of it, but it is important that it's large enough. So here we go. And now I'm going to go ahead and lock my layer so I don't accidentally move it on myself. So I can do that by having my layer open and clicking on the lock. And now it won't be able to move. It'll say this layer is locked when you try. And you won't be able to edit it either. So I've created a new layer, and you're gonna start this off by following by following a couple of the goals I have set out for us. So I'm going to just scroll up here real quick so I can copy and paste those into my document. I've got the type on a path tool as one goal. We're also going to look at the liquify tool, what the letting and kerning tools will do, and something called line weight. So I'm just going to take note of that for myself by dropping that in a text box up in this corner. Now, we're starting off by using the type on a path tool. So I have my pen tool selected, And I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to give a second click as I did for my my object type on a paths from Tuesday. And I have just the bottom of this eyebrow selected. I go to my type on a path or just my type tool, but I'm putting it on a path. And I'm going to give it a click. And I can see that it is showing up now. It's up to you how you want to style it. I kind of want to do all capital letters for the song titles. And I'm just increasing the size until I'm finding that it fills up that whole space. This looks good. And I will just turn it black. It doesn't, you don't have to have it black, but for me, I think that would be the highest contrast. So that's what I'm going to use right now. I could change the color at the end if I didn't like it. And you'll notice that I accidentally just created like a different shape of the eyebrows. You're going to want to hit enter after every action with the pen tool. Otherwise, you're going to get like these gigantic swirly shapes that go across the whole face of your person. So I've made another eyebrow. I've hit enter. And I'm going to put wait a minute, another one of her, or that same song title. And this one's just a little bit smaller. So I have two options here. Option number one is I can scale the size down, but then it might look a little off having one eyebrow bigger than the other. I believe it was at 52. So my other option is to use my direct select tool. This tool will let you choose any point along your path. So I've clicked this arrow underneath the pen tool and I've gone to direct select. And I can just pull it out a little bit. Or I could pull out the path at the end to my liking. That's basically what you're going for in the early tracing phases of your work. So as you're going to notice that there's just so many layers created. Once you have your text typed on a path, you can delete the layer that says shape 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever it is. You don't need that anymore. In Photoshop, it would combine them as well as in Illustrator, the other Adobe program. But in here, it just doesn't. So that's okay, we can just delete it. Now you'll notice that when I hide my willow, I only see the eyebrows. So as I keep on going and keep on refining and adding more, I'm going to be able to recognize my artist and your artist more so. It is going to get confusing, so I'm going to create a group by going to this folder icon. I'm going to name this facial details. So inside this group, I'll put all the facial details. Maybe I'll make a new one for the hair. Some of the things that you're going to be doing in this, they may be just references to things that you've done before in this program. So for example, I can be like changing my font. Let's see what condensed bold does. So it makes it thicker. That might be good for the eye. You also may be thinking of how you can hide certain parts of the text. Like for example, I've just made this O to represent the eye, but I don't need all of that O. So I'm just going to duplicate this O to make the other eye. But now, of course, it looks like her eyes are like crazy wide open. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a layer mask onto my layer. And if you're guessing it right, you're thinking that I'm going to paint black over where I don't need to see the eye. And that's exactly right, because I don't want to see the eye, of course, where there's the eyelid. I just had gray selected by accident. So I'm going back in with my black selected. And I'm making sure that I'm on the right layer. And now when I hide my picture, it's starting to get a little bit more apparent. So I'm going to do this whole process all the way throughout. I'm saying, well, what looks like I could use text? What looks like I could use a single letter to make that shape? And then I'm going to also consider line weight. So when I'm talking about line weight, I'm talking about the darkness of a particular line. In these, if I zoom out really far, what you're going to see is that the eyes are like incredibly dark and bold in comparison to the eyebrows. And I might want them to be a little bit more like each other. As in, I might want the eyebrows to stand out a little bit more. So you could go into your settings next to your font, and you could change it to like bold, for example. Or I'm going to put it to condensed bold because I want them to be a little closer together. And I'm going to just change that for both of my eyebrows. Oops. I'm clicking on the text twice in order to highlight it all, but you could also just use the type icon and click and drag to highlight it. But I find it easier to just double click on this T icon in your layers. And again, one more time, condense bold. So that way they're a little bit more on an even playing field. Now, the more you go, you're going to be experimenting with that, the line weight, but you could also manage that line weight through your whoops, it looks like I was in the wrong spot there. You could also manage that line weight through your paragraph and character styles. Now, it's a little bit of a different process to do that, but it's similar in the fact that you have the control over how much space you see in between your letters. You have the control over how much space there is after you enter, and a couple other features in your character and paragraph styles. So for example, you could make something look like bold if you turn the tracking down. You could make multiple lines of text look a little bit more close together, a little bit bolder as well by turning your leading down. You could also increase or decrease the percentage of width or height of your individual letters, which could make it look thinner or thicker, depending on what you're doing. Now that I have my eyes drawn out, I'm going to just go ahead again, and I'll use my type on a path tool. Now at this point, you know, I've already used one song lyric for the eyebrows, and I want my eyebrows to be a point, my eyebrows and my eyes to be a point that we look at. And my eyelid might be a little bit less important. So I could use a smaller font here, which would be less line weight. Um, and it might mean more typing. So we only have a little bit of my text that's actually showing. So I'm gonna I hit Command or Control A on Windows, and I can lower my size to something that works better. 22 looks like it works. And I can select my text, and I'll just paste it over here. Same thing happening as it did before, where it's just not the full size. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to even it out again, and I'll go to my direct select tool. I'll just drag on this point a little bit. And that didn't do the trick yet, so I will drag on the other one. And now I have that full line. My shapes don't matter anymore once I have my text down, so I'll delete those layers just to conserve some space. And I'll bring those back over to facial details so that I can keep things nice and tidy. So now I can see that I have a little bit more going. It's a little bit of a lengthy process for sure, but it will really give you a cool result in the end here. The other thing that I want to talk to you about is the Liquify tool. So we've talked about kerning and leading that you can find um, right in the character styles. Kerning isn't actually labeled, but kerning would be these two options here, the percentage of width and height, leading being the spacing between two lines of text. We've talked about the type on a path tool. The thing we haven't talked about yet is the Liquify tool. So I have my background showing now, and I'm going to go ahead and open up, let's say, the eyebrows, because I want to have them a little bit bigger going into smaller. So I have my eyebrows selected. I'm not sure if it'll work with both at the same time, so we're about to find that out together. I'm going to hit Shift and use both of them. In Photoshop it would, but I'm just not sure about this program. So I'm going to go to Filter up on the top and Liquify. And then it's going to say the text layer must be rasterized first. What rasterized means across platforms, across programs, is that it's taking this editable text and it is turning it into pixels. So right now it's not pixels because you could go in and if you had a typo, you could click on it and you could fix it. Once it's rasterized, it's no longer editable. It's just pixels and you can't fix like a typo or anything else that would be wrong with it. Um, so just make sure that you have everything as you want it before you rasterize. So I hit OK. And it looks like it's going to load. Let's see if it loads both of them. Looks like it only loaded one, and that's okay. So we can view our background by clicking on this background tab or checkbox. And what I'm seeing is that I have a bit more eyebrow than I do text. The text is all even all the way through, but my eyebrow is a little bit larger. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be just scaling it up a little bit. You'll notice a couple of things here. For example, if I had my brush at a really big size, it's kind of just pushing my text around. But if I have it small, then I'm able to grow just little by little. So I'm bringing that text up to a more realistic part of the eyebrow just to show that little bit of size and scale difference. And I hit OK. Now you'll see when I hide that picture that I have my eyebrow increased over here, and yet it stayed the same over here. So this could be useful to make some really interesting text effects. I'm going to show you one more on the lips, and then the rest of this project is going to be really up to you and what creative direction you decide to take it, as long as you're showing me these skills. So I'll just write out Willow on the lips. I'm going to use my transform control to rotate it in a way where it would fit a little bit better. Computer's going a little slow right now. There we go. So I'm trying to match it with the angle. I'm holding shift while I increase the size. And a little more. There we go. So I'm going to now go back into that liquify menu by going filter, liquify, rasterize. And now is the point where I say, okay, let's scale some of this down, let's scale some up. So I'm matching these with the upper lip line. I could have also said, let me increase my boldness, or let me scale my font up really big and turn the leading and kerning down so that it looks bolder. Kind of wish I had done that at this point. And now that I've liquefied my text along her lips here, it starts to illustrate that part as well. So the more I go through, the more I'm going to be illustrating. You know, I have this bit of the nose. I have, I can illustrate this, like the bridge of the nose. I can illustrate the jaw, the hair as well, maybe for the hair, because that's such a focal point. I do like even thicker text. I do want to show you just before we end this video, the idea of how you can make the text even bolder. If I have my text, let's say this right here, this is fairly normal. I haven't adjusted anything in my character or my paragraph pane, but let's say I scale it up to like 200 pixels. In my character pane, I can decrease both the tracking and it'll put it like closer together. I want a little bit of space between the I and the M. I can decrease the kerning, making it also seem a little bolder than it really is. And now when I would go to do that same thing to the word Smith, we can see that it just looks a little bit bolder in comparison to Willow. So this may be something that you're interested in doing if you do have any parts that you want to be really, really bold and really apparent. Of course, liquefy and rasterize, and that same process. Now, because Willow is not selected anymore, that's not our top layer, that's okay. And we can go over it without it affecting it negatively. And I'm just going through and I'm trying to match as best and as reasonably as I can to the shape and form of the lips, or whatever other part of the face I would be working on at this point. So it does look a little bit bolder than the willow above it. You might decide to use like the bolder one for the darker parts. It's kind of losing that little bit of the top of the lip because I just didn't get that bold in there. You might use a long string of text. For example, you could look up the lyrics of a particular song, and you could be copying and pasting them into a certain part. I think when I get to Willow's hair, I would be doing that because it's just so long, so it would take a lot of text. Now, one thing that you would want to do at this point in time, because there's an enter after each one of these, it wouldn't want to paste onto it well. So you would want to use a word processor like Microsoft Word or Office 365 Word in order to put it all into one line. So for example, like backspacing where there's the enters so that it's on one line. And then you could paste that in to get like the longer bit of text. Once you're finished, it should be fairly recognizable of your person. You should have made whatever edits that you choose to. You're using the tools discussed in this, the type on a path tool, the liquify tool. You may use layer masks. You may end up, just going back to some of the information that you've already learned about Photopea. Please reach out if you have any questions. This is our first that really takes just like a ton of artistic direction. So best of luck.